You are listening to the FunnelAmplified Podcast, where we talk about your growth intensification through social expansion, content amplification, brand magnification, lead generation, conversion optimization, and pipeline acceleration. If you enjoy the show, please write and post your podcast review today. Now let's talk about growing your business. Hey everybody, welcome. This is Brandon Lee with FunnelAmplified. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you listened to our last episode, you know that I have Charrele Brown with us again today from SAP. And Charrele is the director, the head of global e-learning and gamification for digital selling with SAP. Charrele, welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Brandon. It's great to be back. I'm glad we were able to continue our conversation.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I want to bring everyone up to speed because you talked about concepts. I just want to jump right in it because we had such a great conversation and I want to get as much in on this episode as we can. So last time we talked, you talked about these 4 key concepts of digital selling, and they were personal branding. So a salesperson's personal brand within the company brand and those being aligned. You talked about the value, the importance of social listening so that salespeople knew what are their audience, what are their prospects, what are their customers talking about, what do they need, how do I create customer-centric content if I'm not listening? And then that moved right into prospecting, knowing who you're talking to, what you're talking to them about, how you're adding value to them, and then move that into sharing. What type of content are you sharing? How are you sharing it? Where are you sharing it? And those were the 4 key concepts to a successful digital-based selling system. Thank you for sharing that, and welcome back. And based on last time we talked, any new thoughts on those 4 or how we would implement them? And what are some of the challenges that people have as they start moving into a digital selling?
So I think the challenges that people have is the consistency piece of it, right? Salespeople are extremely, extremely busy. Everybody's busy. But particularly for salespeople, they're meeting people, they're doing things. And I think the last time we talked about how digital or social selling or whatever you want to call it is easier, right? Because it gives you a virtual platform in which to work on, right? You don't have to wait for the perfect time to post something. You can be on a plane and you can schedule content through a Grapevine or one of those platforms that schedules your content. So you can look like you're always on. So it makes it easier in that sense. But I think the thing that people struggle with is the consistency of it. And I think since the last time we talked, I started thinking more and more about the process, and it's not linear, it's cyclical, right? It's, you brand yourself, you come up with what you think your best brand is, and then you listen to what the message is out there, what people are talking about, and that may make you change your brand. So it's iterative in the piece that my brand was not addressing my audience, my customers, my prospects. And so I'm going to change that. And then after you do that, you do some prospecting and you do some sharing. And through the results of your prospecting and your sharing, you may get some opinions that are different than what you originally had. And so you change your mind. And so you change your brand. And so you change who you're listening to and what you're listening to. And the channels that you're utilizing. So it's all cyclical. That's what I've discovered since the last time we talked.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's very insightful. What about a specific success? I know you're a big fan. I know that you learn a lot, and every week and every time I talk to you, it's like you have these new insights that you share graciously with me, and I appreciate it. What are some specific successes that you've seen that you could share with us?
So I think around in the area of successes, because we are in a support role. I'm in a support role. I think most of us on the global digital selling program team will say the same thing, right? Our successes are aligned with the successes of the people which we provide support to. So if someone made it to Winner Circle because they've used the digital selling methodology and they were trained by us and we provided the proper support for that person, then that's success to me. If we're closing more deals and it's because of the training and support that this team has given, then that's success to me. So that's why I'm such a fan of digital-based sales and marketing activity.
That's excellent. Now, I've also heard you say that we need to move away from terms like digital selling and social selling, that the terms themselves create barriers for some people, that maybe just the word sales, and it incorporates online and offline activities and training. Can you speak a little bit to that and tell us what you mean and what you
Sure.
see?
So I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't say this often, but I refuse to argue the point of whether it should be called sales or social selling or digital selling. I just think that in this particular case, whatever we call it, we should focus on the underlying practice and less focus on the name. Calling it selling in the first place, I think, has made it difficult for other disciplines like marketing and services and HR and others to engage with the practice. So whether I use it to connect with customers or whether I use it to connect with people I can offer software solution to, or whether I use digital to connect with potential employees, it doesn't matter what I call it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's where in our previous episode we talked about digital sales versus digital marketing, and digital marketing is digital sales, and digital sales is digital marketing. It's really just a medium for communicating and building relationships. That's what I've learned
Right.
from you. Right. Yeah. So what would your advice be? I know I had a conversation with a head of sales. It was about an $80 million company, and told me that he has now had 3 times a social selling expert come in and train his staff. He spent a lot of money and has seen nothing of significance in return, and is very skeptical of this whole concept. What would you say to that person?
Okay, so I would say to them, the fact that they came in and trained and left is the problem. It's not a do this, do that, do this, and you will get results. It's learn this, practice this, be consistent with this, engage with these people. You can't just have someone come in and do it. It has to be part of the lifeblood of the company. It can't just be something that you come in and do and leave. It's not going to work that way.
Right. And I, again, just alluding to our previous episode, what I believe you would say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to that head of a company or head of sales is the numbers don't lie.
Right. They do not. Numbers do not lie. And if you go back to the statistics, and I can certainly reiterate them if you want to do it in this episode, but you don't want to look at these numbers and miss the boat, right? These are not activities that are, it's a question as to whether or not they will help you. They will certainly help you. But you have to practice them and you have to integrate them, and they have to be organic. If it's difficult, if they make you frustrated, then those are not, cold calling can't be anything more frustrating than cold calling, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's nothing we could do inside of LinkedIn that could be worse for a salesperson than cold calling. At least that pit in your stomach when you just start learning how to cold call.
Right. And I know that there are 4, 5 generations in the workplace right now. I don't care who you are or what generation you belong to. If there is something that you need to know, you pick up some device somewhere, whether it's a laptop, a desktop, a phone, an iPad, something to look it up. I don't know of anyone right now who has a set of encyclopedias. And if they do, that information is outdated. So we're using digital to learn. why not use it to sell and to market?
Yeah. And so I want to just unpack that a little bit. You said, I mean, we're all going digital, whether we Google search something, we go into LinkedIn and make, message to our network and say, hey, everybody, I'm in need of XYZ. What do you recommend? Right? Or just going in the newsfeed and seeing and searching for people by company and reading. If we're all going there to do our research, flip the switch and be on the other end and say, how come you're not there with content to be found? Is that what you were saying there?
Yeah. And there's listen, there are millions of resources out there and they're all digital, right? This is why of the 4 digital selling concepts I talked about in our last episode, and we mentioned a little bit earlier, social selling is my favorite. I wouldn't say it's the most important. It's my favorite. That is where you gain knowledge, and that is where you create your strategy. Like, it's no doubt about that.
So let me ask you this, and you have a ton of experience in this. When you are trying to bridge that gap, you have sales reps and there are different various opinions, beliefs about the value of digital selling and these activities. And I know you don't like the word activities, it's concepts. And then you have the marketing team with content that they're creating and providing in various ways. How do you take on, or how would you speak to a marketing leader and a sales leader that may not be seen eye to eye on these overlapping activities?
Yeah, sometimes you hear that people are difficult to work with. I think we should just keep in mind that the sales teams are literally on the front line, right? They have tons of knowledge about customer needs that can be leveraged. And we have the opportunity to learn from them. And so we should certainly take advantage of that opportunity. And when you think of it in that paradigm, and less of this person is difficult and we don't agree because they're doing this and we're doing that, regardless of what you're doing, the end goal is to benefit the company in which you work at, whether you work for yourself or work for a large corporation or a small corporation. Marketing markets, sales sells. And so in the end, when, there are opportunities for bonuses, we all have the same goal that we're working towards. And if we realize that our colleagues and counterparts, while they may be in various levels of activity and various degrees of interacting with customers and prospects, we can learn from them. And once we go in with that mindset, it's less of they're hard to work with, and it's more of, how can we get this done? What can I do to support you? And this is how I need you to support me.
Yeah, that's so good. And Charrele, along those lines, when we're talking about that sales marketing bridge, the divide, depending on the company, talk about the different types of content that help a salesperson use digital for marketing or sales or relationship building.
Well, that's subjective, right? But content is king. So basically, once you find out what your audience needs via social listening, that will help you determine what they want, right? The kind of content that will address your customer needs is what your sales team should be focusing on. How that content is presented and how often is also essential to success. So regardless of what that thing is, either it's out there and it's already created and you agree with it 100%, that's an opportunity to share someone else's content. If it's not out there, use the training and the experience that you have and create that content, because just like you have a need, someone else has a need. I remember when I was in college and the professors would always say, if you have a question, ask it, because if you don't ask it, there's 90% chance that someone else in the class has the same question that you have. And so if no one asks their questions, they won't be effective in doing their job. So if there is something out there, share it. If there's not something out there, create it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually wrote a blog article. My team asked me to do this the other day, and it was on, I said 3 types of content that are necessary to help a marketing company generate leads or a salesperson build relationships, right? And they're, in my opinion, they're one and the same. But the three were brand content, because you need to tell people who you are, what you believe in, what makes your company tick, what makes you different, and what do you do. But I always believe that's about 20% of your content, because really no one cares about our brands. They care about what our brands can do for them, right? So the second type of content would be curated content, because there's a lot of it. And being able to give your opinion about what other people have written, whether you agree, disagree, partly agree, whatever. But it's an easy way for you to go, hey, here's a piece of content. Here's what I think. What do you think? And be involved in that conversation. And then the third piece, which I personally think is the most important, I'd love your input on this, is the customer-centric content.
Okay. So your personally, I agree 100% with what you said. And it's almost in alignment. It is in alignment with branding, listening, sharing, and prospecting. The prospecting helps you create that customer-centric content through social listening, right? You find out who you need to connect with. You create the content because you've listened to what they need. And then the branding piece is exactly the same. And then all you do is share it. If you don't share it, you can get all of this knowledge. You can brand yourself. You can do all of this listening. But if you do not contribute, then we're missing out.
Yeah. See, I like the way you always bring that together. I mean, these core concepts, and I'm just going to kind of repeat these over and over, put them in our blogs when I reference our podcast. It's that progression of your brand is first and foremost. So you're projecting yourself in the right way for your audience, and then listening, going right into listening. And I remember, so much. I say it's nothing's changed. It's just different. And you've referenced a couple things about in college and when you were getting started in our previous episode, when you were getting started in college and how you got into this role with SAP. I remember going back to my first role, and it was a consulting role, but it was a sales role. And it was my first role out of grad school. And I was taught that sales conversations are a lot like the game hot potato.
Mm-hmm.
You never want to hold the potato, right? You never want to be the one talking. You want to be listening as much as you can. And so every time you say social listening, I just keep getting these images of hot potatoes in my hand, and I'm tossing them to somebody and keep other people talking.
And that's the engagement piece. I appreciate that you sharing that is now I see where, I always knew you were passionate, but that's where I see that fire that you have, because you're always, trying to find out more about what the theory is behind why people do what they do. And that's essentially what that concept is.
Yeah. And that's where, for us with Funnel Amplified, with our product, and again, I don't use our podcast to promote it, but what I love about the conversations I've had with you, with Michael, with SAP is you all, in my opinion, and some other, big enterprise companies out there, you're on the front lines. You're learning this stuff. You're spending lots of time and money around the world. And I love learning and gleaning from you all because you've out there, you've put in the hard work, and I love learning it from you. So I don't have to go in and put that hard work in too. I can just glean it and move forward.
Yeah, that's right. And, it's when you talk about us, our investments in it, we, of course, we have the advocacy program, and we have the training program, which is a global effort. And we have, SAP support. We have one of the best programs globally. But what is funny is, where people put their money where their mouth is when they need the training, or they say they want the training and they have to cover the expenses of the trainer. That's where you see if they really want this or not. And we get a lot of solicitation and inquiries about training. And then, the people that stay with it and stick with it, those are the folks that we're getting success stories from, right? In the end, they're like, I use this. I was apprehensive. I was hesitant. And now this is what I'm doing. And we're like, we need to catalog this as a success story.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Charrele, I would like to end with one last conversation and thank you for all the wisdom and insight and experience that you've shared with us today. But, our audience is a lot of SMBs, and you have this phenomenal enterprise level experience and insight and wisdom. What would you recommend for either the salesperson or maybe it's a sales leader of an SMB that doesn't have the support of their company yet? What would you recommend them to do to try and incorporate and incorporate these concepts and add value to their role and their business?
So the only thing is, everything on the other side of zero is an increase, right? So when you look at that, that's a good thing. So if you're not getting the results that you want, or you are, but you feel like you can do better, I would stop right where you are, document your performance to this point, and say, this is what I'm going to change. This is what I'm going to do every day. This is what I'm going to follow. Become accountable, stick with it, stay consistent. And I am going to do the following activities. I'm going to engage with the following people. I'm going to do, and you document that catalog. It doesn't have to be a white paper. Just, say that this is where I am and this is where I want to go. And engage with some social activities, change your brand, follow Richard Branson, follow Bill McDermott, follow Jennifer Morgan and Alicia Tillman, and follow these influencers online and see what they're doing and pattern your behavior. If that is appropriate for you after what they're doing, how often they're active, what they're posting about, who they're connected with, and see what the change is. And I guarantee you there'll be a change.
That is so good, Charrele. Thank you for that. What I would say, everybody, is follow Charrele Brown on LinkedIn and Twitter, and watch what she's doing, and watch the nuggets of wisdom that she shares on her social platforms. Charrele, thank you so much for being with me again today. And is there anything you would want to leave our audience before we wrap up?
As you follow me, understand that I'm training others, so I'm not always posting as often as I'd like to, but I definitely do share nuggets of wisdom that, the colleagues that I work with, my team, we have an amazing team. Don't just follow me, follow AJ, follow Michael, Kirsten, Alisha, Marco. We are all a great team. So if you want to put their contact information somewhere in here, Brandon, I would appreciate that. But it's not just me. We have a great leader. We have an amazing team. And these guys, no matter where you're located in the world, there's someone who is in your region, and there's someone who can support you. So.
Yeah, Charrele, thank you so much. I appreciate that because, I'm not an enterprise level company, of course, but I love learning what you all are doing, and I then adopt it or adapt it into what we're doing at our SMB level. And so thank you for leading this, and thank you for coming on again and sharing with us today. So everybody, this is Ms. Charrele Brown with SAP, and thank you so much for joining us today. And look down in our in the podcast notes for links, as Charrele referenced. We'll put links in there to her team so you can follow them. And I believe, Charrele, we were also talking about maybe putting a little GIF down there of some graphics, some imagery of some of your systems. And we will put those down in there as well. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us on Funnel Amplified. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey, Funnel Amplifiers, thanks for listening. Did you know that we post new videos every day on our YouTube channel? Go to FunnelAmplified.com/YouTube and subscribe so you won't miss out on our new content. Again, it's FunnelAmplified.com/YouTube. Subscribe now, and thanks again.